Well. Stephen Jones confessed to the Cowboys making a big mistake this offseason as we enter the NFL Scouting Combine week. And we will talk about what he had to say. He talked about the wide receiver position, but he also shared some insight as to what the plan could be for the Cowboys this offseason. So without any further ado, we'll get into that on tonight's episode of A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. But before we do that, do me a favor, hit the like button, share the stream. If you are watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, let your friends know about A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime by hitting that thumbs up. And now that more of us are here, let's get ready to start the show officially. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. What is up, everybody, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network. With a lot more content coming your way, make sure that you check out a2csports.com/Dallas. And as always, remember that Primetime is brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. We will talk more about them and the ride of the week in a few moments here on the show. But before we do any of that, though, let's get into the topic of the night. Stephen Jones talked to the media. Everybody's favorite Cowboy talked to the media, and he kind of told on himself. He kind of confessed to making a big mistake during, the 2022 season, or to be more accurate, before the 2022 NFL season. And I don't think that he even accounted for the entirety of the mistake. But let's see what he had to say before. Let's see what he had to say to Todd Archer from ESPN, who did a fantastic job interviewing him and getting some information out of who we mostly see as the real Cowboys general manager, for better or worse. Will McClay, great talent evaluator, but probably the guy who runs things on the salary cap side of things is Stephen Jones. He had to say the following. And just as context, Todd Archer adds in his own tweet that Stephen Jones mentioned that it was probably fair to say that they didn't handle the wide receiver position appropriately. This is the Stephen Jones quote. I think Gallup, we probably should have been a little more conservative. Most guys come off an AZL, especially skilled guys. Maybe it takes a little time. I think that Gallup is going to be back in full form in 2023, but getting a little confidence in our drafting, thinking that Jalen Tolbert could step right in and do some things. I think sometimes it takes a little longer with the receivers. Oh, man. What is one word to describe this quote by Stephen Jones? Because I got to tell you, I have some feelings about it. I have some strong feelings about it. What is one word to describe this quote from Stephen Jones? Let's break it down a little bit while you give me your answers. And Toxic Tom, shout out to you, sir. By the way, let me say hi to you. Toxic Tom, Gregory, we've got Bruce, Mark, Katharina over at Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. We've got Holly in the chat. We've got December over at Facebook. Toxic Tom says, I said this last year around this time. The plan from the jump was awful. Oh, yeah, by the way, I know that Stephen Jones did not mention Amari Cooper. Let's say that it was relevant, so I decided to use a picture of Amari Cooper. Why not? Why not use Amari Cooper's picture for this discussion? Incompetent is Toxic Tom's one word. Holly goes with obvious. Mark goes with duh. Gregory goes with boring. And hey, I don't blame any of you for those words because I agree with them. My one word would be late. Because you can sit here and say, you know what, we expected a little bit more from Jalen Tolbert. But you cannot sit in February of 2023, almost March, and act as if it is new knowledge that wide receivers take time in the NFL. It has been a known fact that it is perhaps one of the most difficult transitions in football from college to the pros, wide receiver. I mean, quarterback is obviously the most difficult one, but many talent evaluators, many coaches will tell you that wide receiver could be a close second. Just think about the readings that they also have to do in the NFL that maybe they don't do in college. Now, they are supposed to not like drafting players out of small schools. And this is not against Jalen Tolbert, by the way, because you guys know that I liked Jalen Tolbert coming out of college. I was excited about the pick. But if you're drafting a player from a small school, which is seemingly against your own rules, because the Cowboys usually won't draft players out of those schools, out of a group of 5 colleges, and you're expecting him to be ready day one as a starter, and the season ends with a loss against the San Francisco 49ers in which no one other than CeeDee Lamb gets open, and then in the second half, the 49ers figure that out, and you blame Dak Prescott. You say the first thing out of your mouth is Dak Prescott needs to elevate the team for those wins. I don't know. I would say that it's late. You cannot act here. You cannot sit here and act like it is something new. Stephen Jones cannot act like, what I figured out? Wide receivers take time in the NFL. Come on, man. That's just not gonna cut it, in my opinion. Now, the wide receiver position has been so symbolic for the Cowboys because every decision they made last year was probably wrong. Starting with the fact that they let Amari Cooper walk. And let's not fool each other. Amari Cooper, yeah, it happened a long time ago. Yeah, it is frustrating as heck to keep coming back to it. But how can't you circle back to the fact that you had one of the best route runners in the NFL? I'm not going to say one of the best wide receivers just because I don't want to get into this conversation of where does he stack up against Davante Adams, Mike Evans, and all of these top tier wide receivers. But I mean, we can comfortably say that he's in one of those tiers, right? In one of those upper tiers in the NFL. And you let him walk because you did not want to pay him. Keyword, you did not want to pay him. It wasn't that the salary cap didn't allow you to do it. It was that you straight up did not want to pay the cash to Amari Cooper. And just circling back to the conversation that we had last Thursday, the Cowboys are the second lowest spending team in the entire NFL since 2021. 2021 and 2022, they were the second lowest spending team in the entire NFL. It relates. And when we're talking about one of the most pressing needs for the Cowboys right now, it is difficult to not include the Amari Cooper decision into the conversation. Although I understand those who say, come on, we cannot be talking about that again. You have to do it. You have to circle back to this. Because now the thing becomes, all right, so you moved on. Yeah, so you moved on from Cooper. Now you're looking back at the 2022 season and you're going, oh, we probably needed to pay more attention to wide receiver. We probably needed to help out Dak Prescott a little bit more. Where do you go from here? Because it is not enough. It is not enough to confess to this mistake. Now you gotta turn around and go, okay, how do I make this right? By adding, according to Stephen Jones's own words, a playmaker. Because according to Todd Archer's article over at ESPN, Stephen Jones said, offensively, we've just got to have maybe add a playmaker to it, add a little juice, add a playmaker to it, and see if we can do that. Now, I will say this. I think that the Cowboys, I think that the Cowboys might be really interested in signing or trading for or whatever it is a wide receiver to help out on offense. I know that we're not used to getting excited about a potential signing. I mean, I used the Odell Beckham Jr. picture, but it could be someone else. We've talked about Juju Smith-Schuster before on the show. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to let him walk or not, but I think that they're going to target a relatively big name at wideout. I don't think that they will land Jacoby Myers, who was a top free agent at the position this year. But it would just check out with what Stephen Jones is saying right now, but more than anything, for what they did, with what they did at the end of the season, which was try to land OBJ. Because they did try to do it, but of course OBJ was not healthy. Nobody signed him. I do think they make a move at wide receiver. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Do you think the Cowboys make a big move at wide receiver or not? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. In the meantime, let me see some of your comments here, and then we will get into what appears to be one of the big decisions coming the Cowboys' way. And essentially, I think that we had a confirmation from Stephen Jones about it. Let's see some of your comments here. Katharina goes with yes. Peter Rizzo goes with yes. They do think the Cowboys are getting a big name wide receiver or a big move wide receiver. Dylan James goes with my words exactly. I'm not necessarily sure though that was in response to another comment. Troy goes with Diggs needs a running mate and kick Brown inside with Lewis. Interesting. I do think that, you still need help at the cornerback, so I will agree there. I'm wondering if Diggs, Bland, and Mukwamu is even a possibility for the Cowboys, because Mukwamu played well enough for the Cowboys to consider how can we get him on the lineup defensively. I think D-Hop says, look, and we had a show about DeAndre Hopkins in case you want to check it out as well. But I agree with, look, DeAndre Hopkins could be a possibility here. I don't think that Mike Evans is a possibility just because I don't see the Bucs wanting to get rid of him in the first place. Gilbert says, I think so too. Brian also goes with yes. Toxic Tom essentially goes with no, saying that talk is cheap with Stephen Jones. Wide receiver is a top 3, maybe top 2 priority, says Holly. I would say top 2. You cannot convince me that it is not a top 2 priority for the Cowboys. And I know it's ironic because we saw an offense that statistically ran pretty efficiently. Just like looking at the season end numbers, the Cowboys were still an offense that ranked in the upper echelon of the NFL efficiency metrics wise. But you need more. You need to have answers in those tough games like in the playoffs. Dallas did not figure out how to attack the 49ers secondary in the playoffs unless it was through CeeDee Lamb. And once DeMeco Ryans figured that out, it was game over for the Cowboys. They do need some help at wide receiver. I agree with Holly there. It has to be one of the top 2 priorities right now. Dylan James says, we need a cornerback in the first round. Get a wide receiver in free agency. Joey Porter Jr., first round pick. Now, I do like Porter Jr. I do think that the draft pick ultimately comes down to who is available. It should come down to who is available. I think that a cornerback, wide receiver, offensive line could all be in play with the Cowboys' 27th overall pick. But cornerback could be a possibility. I will not rule that out. It will come down to who is available. There was a discussion over there in the YouTube chat, but I never saw the beginning of it. I don't know if I don't think that Josh is actually debating with me. I think there's an ongoing debate on YouTube, but I'm sorry, I just completely lost track of it, so I don't know what it is about. But Toxic Tom does have a question. He says, big question is this. Great leadership learns from mistakes. After what Cowboy said, does that mean a complete philosophical approach to team building? And that is essentially, and I agree with Toxic Tom here, that is essentially what I mean by not enough, right here in the overlay to my right. I just think that you have confessed that you did things the wrong way, because that's what Stephen Jones just did by saying that they put too much trust in Jalen Tolbert, by saying that they should have been more conservative when it comes to their expectations with Michael Gallup. Now, what you're going to do, and I want to have a deeper show on this, kind of like laying out some scenarios of how the Cowboys can approach the wide receiver position. But you cannot go the route that you went last year, which was essentially just, let's trust Michael Gallup. Let's give him a bigger role while giving CeeDee Lamb a bigger role, and that was more justified. And let's trust a third-round pick to be completely ready to go. Bob Sturm from The Athletic, who is a guy that I admire way too much. That dude is amazing. We have had him in the show before. We had him last year before the NFL draft, actually. And he had a very interesting tweet weeks ago about how every wide receiver drafted in the third round or later had similar outputs to Jalen Tolbert. And that's without Tolbert even playing. So his point was, this is a position that doesn't do well in year one. And the fact that it is so clear should tell you that if you are the Cowboys, you cannot wait until the NFL draft to approach this. And you can certainly not approach this season by banking on Jalen Tolbert being a completely different player in year two. He might be, but you're not going to figure that out until summer when training camp is on. Because sure, you're going to have some practices in May, and you're going to have some voluntary practice windows as well. But you're not going to figure out who Jalen Tolbert really is in 2023 until training camp. You better go get a real wide receiver. Not real. Real is not the word. A proven wide receiver now. Let's see here. Let's see here. I think the conversation about on YouTube, the debate was around the QB position, and we'll get into the QB position very soon here on the show. By the way, Mark Aaron says, in my opinion, it's not a really strong receiver draft, and there are gonna be some names probably near the 27th overall pick that are worth discussing. I mean, I know that everybody loves Zay Flowers already. We know that. There could be some names worth looking at, but we'll see. It is probably stronger on the offensive line side of things from a depth perspective, at least. We'll see. But let's get into the other thing that Dak Prescott, that Stephen Jones said about Dak Prescott here, because I think that we got confirmation about one of the biggest plans for the Cowboys in the 2023 offseason. My question from me to you is, are you going to be happy or unhappy if the Cowboys extend Dak Prescott this offseason? Let me know in the chat. Let's get an idea of how the chat feels about a potential Dak Prescott extension. Would you be happy or unhappy at a Dak Prescott extension? Let me know in the chat while you do that. And before I give you my answer, which I think you can guess, let me talk to you about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net, because the ride of the week is here. But Freeman Mazda, remember, is a family-owned business, has been so for over 65 years, and you can check out their dealership over at Irving, Texas. If you prefer to do so, you can check it out over at FreemanMazda.net. And when you choose Freeman Mazda, Keep in mind, you are choosing a lifelong partnership with your car dealer. And as every single night, we have to look at the Freeman Mazda ride of the week. In this case, it is a good one because we're going to talk about the 2023 MX5 Miata RF Grand Touring. And this one starts at $36,815. It's got Apple CarPlay / Android Auto, manual transmission, convertible roof, premium audio, and a blind spot monitor, plus a miles per gallon capacity of 26 when you are in the city. That goes up to 34 when you are in the highway. So make sure that you check out the Freeman Mazda ride of the week. They are making prime time possible, as always. So would you be happy or unhappy at a Dak Prescott extension? Let's see what the chat has to say. Let's see what the chat has to say. Depends on the deal, to be honest, says Toxic Tom. Katharina goes with happy all the way. Money out. Almost got me. Monty says, happy we need the money, brother. Happy for Peter Rizzo. Extend him for what, says T.I. Juan Daniel goes with unhappy. Brian goes with glad. Katharina says, he's an awesome QB, Mo. Holly says, I'm fine with the extension. A lot of teams would kill to have Dak right now, like a lot of teams. And that is true. Inez goes with happy. Yes for Brian. Gregory says, happy. Dak deserves a ring. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Jones talked about it, and my answer, by the way, is happy. But let me tell you why. Let's get into what Stephen Jones had to say, though, before we get into my opinion on this. Jones essentially confirmed that the Cowboys are extending Dak Prescott. Not that long ago, we had a show explaining why this could be the best outcome for the Cowboys and Dak. And honestly, as time goes by, I've come to the realization that it's probably the only option that the Cowboys have right now. Listen, salary cap space is not a problem. The Cowboys can just, put out some signatures here and there, take care of some deals very quickly, and open up like $40 million in cap space. But perhaps the healthiest way to do it is through a Dak Prescott extension. That is why you set up the contract the way that you did. Because you know that if you restructure his deal, you can open up like $22 million in cap space. But if you extend Dak Prescott and you take some of that salary, you turn it into a signing bonus, you do some magic stuff with it, you push some of the salary towards later years, maybe up the guarantee salary a little bit, you're going to get that number significantly down. You can open up like $30 million in cap space just by extending Dak Prescott. And if you want to line up what you want to do cash-wise with what you want to do with the salary cap, and you want to go get some help at wide receiver, maybe you want to go get, I know that we've talked about Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey, who could eventually be available. And I know that those sound like fantasies for Cowboys fans right now. But if the Cowboys want to explore that, or even keep their own guys and get ready to be proactive with the Trayvon Diggs deal and be proactive with the CeeDee Lamb deal and maybe get ready for the Micah Parsons deal in 2024, then the Cowboys can get started right now. The alternative, and probably the biggest argument against extending Dak Prescott, is letting him play out his deal and have this fresh start in 2024. But do the Cowboys really want a fresh start? Because it's tough to find a quarterback in the league. It is tough to find a QB in the league. The teams that are out there really looking for one, their options come down to like a QB prospect, of course, in the first round. If you're lucky enough to have a top 5 pick and choose your guy, some of these teams in the top 5 will not even get to choose their guy, even with the 2nd, 3rd, 4th overall pick. And in free agency, you can get Derek Carr. And I have nothing against Derek Carr, but I would undoubtedly rank him below, Dak Prescott. I would have Dak as a better quarterback in that discussion 10 times out of 10. The drafted quarterback thing, that idea is crazy. And I know that, when it is February and when it is March and you're watching the highlights of some of these prospects on TV, you can get excited about anybody. You can get excited about the Kentucky quarterback. You can get excited about Anthony Richardson out of Florida. You can get excited about the kid out of Ohio State, CJ Stroud. Same with Bryce Young. And if you want to get even more creative, you can talk to me about mid-round QBs, and you can get excited about that idea. The NFL does not work like that, though. How many first overall QBs have not worked out? Shout out Mariota, shout out Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, all of those guys. And Jared Goff, by the way, had a very decent season with the Lions. Good for him. But I'm just saying, Dak is undoubtedly your best option right now. And not only that, he will continue to be your best option. So just extend him and get yourself in a position to make the most out of a long-term QB deal. Because that is the benefit of a long-term QB deal. If you push the can down the road year after year in terms of the salary cap, as long as you keep the player, you're going to be just fine. But if you move on from him, then that's where the problem kicks in. That's where the dead money gets you. But as long as Dak is on the roster and as long as he's playing and you are kicking the can down the road, you're going to be just fine. The players that you don't want to do that with are those that you're not sure about having around the year after that or 2 years from now. So, for example, you're not going to restructure Ezekiel Elliott's deal. You might agree to a pay cut, but you're not restructuring his deal because a restructure would just make it tougher to get rid of him 1 year from now. Bruce says Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold were first-round picks. Yeah, exactly. So the best path forward, for the Cowboys is to just extend Dak Prescott. I think it is happening. I think that Stephen Jones essentially confirmed it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but as long as it is a deal thought out for the long term, for these two sides to keep doing what they have been doing, the Cowboys should be fine in that salary cap conversation. I really think so. Now, the problem, as many of us have figured out, is not that the Cowboys do not have the salary cap space, is that they need to want to be proactive and they need to want to spend big if they're going to get some of these players that we dream about on a yearly basis. That's why I think the cash over cap discussion has become so interesting for Dallas. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this will be it for me tonight, though, on ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I do agree with Joey Bella, though. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Share the stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Let your friends know about the show. By the way, tomorrow we do have the one cool thing of the week. And let me tell you something. If the lighting looked a little bit weird tonight, I'm playing around with a new camera. So I'm excited about that. I need to figure out some of the settings of it. But yeah, I'm trying to level up for you guys on this show. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, and I will see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central. Remember that you can check out my articles over at adcsports.com/Dallas. You can check out all of the content that we have for you there on ADC Sports. Shout out to Matthew Lennox, by the way, stepping up. He announced it already. Full-time writer for adcsports.com. Excited for my guy. And as always, Primetime brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. We will talk more about them throughout the week. Check them out over at freemanmazda.net. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.